What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I am Necrotic, and I have another collection update for you. Lots of good stuff in this. Pretty interesting mix of different stuff here. I mean, I usually have a pretty interesting mix, but there's some really good stuff in here, so let's just get right into it. Desultory, Into Eternity. This is a reissue on Rising and Metal Blade Records of Desultory's debut album, and it is an absolute killer album if you've never heard it. These guys were definitely part of the whole Swedish death metal pack, except I think these guys had a thrashier side to them that really, like, bands like Entombed and Dismember didn't exhibit as much. These guys pretty much took that base Swedish death metal sound and then added, like, pestilence and death to it. This is an incredible album from start to finish. Definitely go out and find this one, jam it, it's incredible. Check it out. Blood Revolt, Indoctrine. This is the only release by this band. They were kind of a international band slash supergroup, I guess. It features the frontman from Primordial, which I'm not necessarily a big fan of, but I definitely know of that band, and they have quite the fan base. And this is kind of a blackened death metal project, even though there's like parts in here that definitely remind me of grindcore. It's an interesting listen. It's kind of disjointed. The vocals really never get harsh enough to be as extreme as the music is. I think it sounds more like a harsh spoken word than actual growls or anything like that. Now, granted, I know this guy's a great vocalist and probably didn't want to damage his vocal cords too much, but it really kind of contrasted the music in a negative way. And the music's decent. It kind of reminds me of an all-Nothrock in terms of their approach, except not as focused, which those guys are absolutely nuts, so focus is kind of an interesting word for that band. But still, check it out. It's an interesting listen. I'll give it that. And who knows, you might like it. Nuclear Death. This is a reissue of their original EP, For Our Dead, and All Creatures Great and Eaten. Now, this was a death grind band out of Arizona, and these albums, I believe, came out in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, and this is really rough. Like, really rough to listen to in terms of production. It's very muddy. They definitely sound like that early Carcass or early Bolt Thrower. Very muddy, but very, very heavy. And pretty unique in the sense that they had a front woman at that time, which a front woman in extreme metal back then really wasn't the most common thing. Musically, it's okay. I think it's pretty decent. I heard in their later stuff they went into more experimental rock, which I'm kind of curious about. But honestly, if they just did a better production job on this, and not necessarily just like polish it to death, just kind of touch it up a bit, I think this would actually sound pretty damn cool. But either way, it's kind of a cool little footnote in history, and I'd say definitely check it out. Shed the Skin, We of Scorn. This is a death metal band from Cleveland, and it's interesting because I actually got one of their albums in a grab bag from Hell's Headbangers, which this is released on, and the first one was definitely more old school death metal, definitely like Obituary, Incantation sort of thing. And this one is way more melodic death metal. I was really surprised. Like, there's actually a lot of melodic death metal riffs on here. There's a lot of Hypocrisy and At the Gates, but you still have a lot of that old school, Florida death metal on here too, which is interesting. Pretty solid release though. I enjoyed most of this album. It's really just catchy death metal. Good stuff. Definitely check it out. It's a pretty fun listen. Krabathor Lies. Since I liked Orthodox so much, I had to go out and find some more, and found this on Amazon for a reasonable price and picked it up. This is another killer album from Krabathor. Again, I really love the bass work in here. It really stands out. That seems to be like kind of a signature theme across the albums I've listened to, at least. Really catchy songs. Surprisingly, for as brutal as they are, like, this is still very much that vein of Morbid Angel, Monstrosity, stuff like that. Very accessible. Lots of melodic hooks. There's even some kind of punky, thrashy moments on there, too. Really good stuff. I definitely enjoyed this album. I'm definitely looking for more Krabathor because apparently they're an absolutely kick-ass death metal band. Check it out. Sanctus Moore's Aeturna. This is one of the albums I got in the last Metalhead box. This came out on Sepultura Productions, which I'm not really familiar with. This is a one-man black metal band from France, and this is really good. Now, I'm usually kind of sketchy about one-man bands. My experience with them is that sometimes they're not necessarily that great in terms of being good at all the instruments. This is quite the exception. This guy is exceptional at all these instruments on here. The songwriting is very much in the vein of Mayhem and Emperor. It's both grim, but also epic and very layered and atmospheric. I really dig this album. Long songs on here. Most of them are over the 9-minute mark. There's one on here that's over the 10-minute mark too. But really well written. And this guy really creates quite a grim atmosphere across the board on this. Excellent stuff. I really enjoyed this. Definitely check it out. Xoth, Interdimensional Invocations. This is really exceptional tech death from Seattle, but it's really old school tech death, so it's more close to like Death's Human or Individual Thought Patterns or even any one of Atheist's albums. Very similar to that. Lots of killer riffs. Lots of a blending of thrash metal in here too. Songwriting is all over the place. My only complaint is sometimes the tone of the album kind of goes from like very serious to almost kind of silly. But I mean, if you're doing Cthulhu-inspired death metal, you know, all the Lovecraftian themes, I think you have to be a little tongue-in-cheek. Really good stuff, though. I really enjoyed this. Again, this came in the Metalhead box as well, and they're putting in quality stuff because this is an absolute ripper. Check it out. Nominom Monumentomb. I've had Nominom pop up quite a few times here lately. I've been really getting into these guys. This is just straight up old school death metal from Sweden. Not necessarily like Swedish death metal in terms of the guitar tone. It's not very buzzsaw. It's more just kind of gritty and dirty sounding, like almost deliberately a bit muddy, which is pretty cool as long as it still sounds good. This came out on Deathgasm Records, and this is a pretty solid album. I think I like the other ones I got a little bit better, but this is still really good, and I strongly recommend checking them out because this is just awesome death metal. Gorgon Titanomachy. I think that's how you say that word, and yeah, I'm just going to stick with that. This is a symphonic melodic death metal band from France, and they really labor the symphonic part. I'm kind of hit or miss when it comes down to symphonic metal. Sometimes I think the symphonic parts are just too much. It's also in this case. But these guys are really good songwriters. It's definitely comparable to like Morris Principium Est as far as the style. So, pretty good stuff. Now this is actually a reissue from last year of their independently released first album, which came out in 2016. So there's definitely other stuff to check out by them. This came out on Dust Tone Records. I have to say, some of the symphonic parts really kind of capture like the epic adventure movies. The intro on here actually kind of reminded me of like Congo or The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. Like, it just seems really over the top, and I mean, it's still well done, but not necessarily my thing. But still, check it out. You might really dig it. Who knows? Oath of Cruelty, Summary Execution at Dawn. This is the debut album from these guys. This came out last year on Dark Descent, and this is really raw death thrash. Little hints of black metal, but not too much. Pretty much this is just thrash here in hell, but has those little elements of death metal in there. Definitely some possessed worship on here. Really good stuff, though. I really like the writing on here. The mix is a little rough, though. I think the guitars sound a little too muddy. But all in all, I really enjoyed most of the songs in here. I think it's a pretty solid release and pretty good start for a young band. So yeah, definitely check them out. Sentient Horror, Morbid Realms. Can't believe I missed this one last year. I really love their EP and their other full length. This is awesome death metal from Stockholm, New Jersey, not Sweden. But you couldn't really tell the difference because these guys sound like Bloodbath, Entomb, Dismember, all that fun shit. Excellent songwriting on here. I really love how these songs are just packed with energy. The lead work on here is exceptional. It's very melodic, surprisingly. There's a lot of really cool melodies that really get stuck in your head in these leads, and I'm surprised they didn't just go with like squealy dive bombs or anything like that. I really just dug the fact that they went with melody. Hooks aplenty. If you love death metal, there's a damn good chance you'd dig this. It is an awesome release. This came out on Redefining Darkness, by the way, so definitely check this one out. Alright, we got a pair from Marduk here. We have Plague Angel and World Funeral. This one is pretty much everything I love about Marduk. It is fast, it is evil as shit. You know, they pretty much reinforce that they are the world's most blasphemous band, quote unquote. Really solid release, I really dig this one. World Funeral is a little bit different. Now this is the 2014 reissue. This originally came out in 2003, I believe. This is them experimenting with their sound a bit. There's still definitely some stuff that sounds like Marduk for sure, but there's also more mid-tempo tracks and more songwriting dynamics, we'll call it. But I think they experimented a little too much, and some of these songs really just kind of missed the mark. There's one on here that I remember even sounding kind of folky, and it just didn't really fit the overall feel of Marduk. But still, you know, you gotta experiment. You can't do the same thing every time. Sometimes it won't work, though. Either way, check them both out. Marduk fucking rules. Pretty sure we all know that. Check them out. Saturnalia Temple, To the Other. This is a doom slash sludge slash stoner metal band from Stockholm, Sweden. And it's kind of like a grittier version of Monolord, except without the hooks, really. Unfortunately, a good chunk of this album just seemed like it was kind of working one riff and pretty much beating it into the ground until you just kind of got sick of it. And while there are some moments in here that I did like, most of this I just found kind of boring. Like, the mix is nice and heavy. I really dug that. Vocals were a little bit harsher, almost kind of a blackened kind of touch to them. But all in all, it just kind of came across as a bit dull. Still, I'd be willing to check out more by them, but this release really didn't do much for me. Either way, though, check it out. You might really dig it. Just not for me. Witchtrap, Sorceress Bitch. What a name for an album. This is their first album that originally came out in 2002. This was reissued, I believe, 2014 on Hell's Headbangers. Doesn't say the date back here, but I think that's right. This is just killer black and thrash from Colombia. This is a three-piece band, and it's a lot of just possessed, early Sepultura, that sort of thing. It's just really good. I have two other releases by these guys, and they're not nearly as good as this one. This one is truly exceptional. I really loved it. Definitely has a like stripped down Toxic Holocaust feel to it, which I love Toxic Holocaust, so yeah, naturally it just worked out for me. Recording's a little rough, but still you get past it because the songs are really fucking good on here. Definitely check it out. And finally we have In Mourning, Garden of Storms. This is an absolutely killer release from these guys. I've been following this band since Monolith, and it is awesome to hear these guys steadily grow. This pretty much is for people that miss the old Opeth, back when they were growling and still balanced that whole Beauty and the Beast dynamic. It is very proggy, melodic death metal. Excellent songwriting on here. I love the whole dynamic between the softer moments and the more harsh moments. They do both exceedingly well. The clean vocals have gotten a lot better over the years, and same with the harsh vocals. Everything is just really just ramped up to 11 on here. Incredible album. Definitely check this one out. It was thoroughly awesome to listen to. Alright, well that knocks out another collection update. Gonna get back to album reviews, hopefully a discography ranking soon, and don't forget we have a giveaway going on. Once we get to 1,000 subs, we are giving away a Cryptopsy hoodie to one of our subs. So there's a reason to sub right there. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, definitely sub, get in line for that hoodie, and I will catch you guys later.